For 400 years, servicemen and women have fought to carve out and defend freedom and the civilization we know as America. This series, On a Moment in Time, is devoted to the memory of those warriors whose sacrifice represents, in the words of Lincoln at Gettysburg, the last full measure.
A Moment in Time with Dan Roberts.
In two memorable speeches, President Abraham Lincoln sketched out his vision of America's storied past and brightening future. In the Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural address, the wartime president articulated the pain of an America beset by its own demons of pride and conflict, but then he articulated the pathway to redemption. The first of the two was delivered on November 18, 1863, at the dedication of the National Cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The shrine was dedicated 4 months after the bloodiest battle of the Civil War. The principal speaker was the well-known orator, statesman, and former president of Harvard College, Edward Everett. Lincoln was invited to the ceremony to make a few remarks. He spoke to an audience of 10,000 people, including state governors, presidential cabinet members, and foreign dignitaries. At 2 p.m. on a mild autumn day, Lincoln, dressed in a black frock coat and white gloves, began his 272-word, 3-minute speech. 87 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. These simple yet eloquent words are an outline of America's promise and the painful sacrifices that had proven necessary to secure that promise. Most of those who heard it, or of it, recognized the grandeur of the message. The next day, Everett wrote Lincoln, "I should flatter myself that I came as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." At the University of Richmond, I'm Dan Roberts.